Here we are in the middle of June, and nothing is as it should be. Students who are graduating are quietly moving on. The traditional celebration's a thing of the past. And the last few months of education have been less than ideal. Since the beginning of the pandemic, the United Nations has monitored school closures around the world. At the peak, more than 91% of the world's students were out of class. That's close to 1.6 billion children. Some places have begun reopening schools. Just over 20 European countries, for example, have allowed kids back in class, but with restrictions, and there have been setbacks. In France, within days of reopening, there were outbreaks, and several schools had to close again after 70 students and staff tested positive for COVID-19. For those still open, it hasn't been business as usual by any means. There are smaller classes, cafeterias are closed, lockers are out of use, libraries off limits. Here in North America, most states and provinces have been cautious. There have been limited reopenings in a handful of American states. And in Canada, several provinces have welcomed students and teachers back, but it's not business as usual. In Quebec, one of the first jurisdictions on the continent to reopen classes, it wasn't province-wide. In the Montreal metropolitan area, the region hit hardest by COVID-19, schools are still closed. Where they are open, we wanted to see how things have gone. Our Mike Armstrong went to Howick Elementary, just an hour outside Montreal. Getting back into class has been a learning experience for everyone, and some of the lessons could be applied across Canada.
When parents pull up and drop their kids off, things at Howick Elementary School look normal. You notice what's not normal when the buses pull up. Basically, the numbers. Instead of 30 or 40 kids, this bus drops off 4. Classes are optional, and a lot of parents have decided to keep their kids home. For those who did come back, this last part of the year is sort of a dry run for the fall.
The kids that are here now are going to be better off in September than the ones that are just coming straight back. That's what I think. That's kind of what we thought about it.
Howick Elementary would normally have 170 students, kindergarten to grade 6. Right now, it has just 40 students.
So it is a challenge.
Rob Butters heads the New Frontiers School Board. He says attendance board-wide is running at about 29%.
There's been various reasons why parents have chosen to keep the children home. The first one is absolutely there's still the fear of catching the virus, no question about it.
Now, when the school reopened, there were a ton of changes. One of them limiting access. While students are in class, journalists aren't allowed in the building. They did let us in after school.
So it's a little strange.
But Principal Melanie Primo agreed to take one of her small cameras inside to show us how things are going.
Hold on, I'll even get the door for you.
Thank you, sir.
No, thank you.
I'll be back.
The first thing you notice is the physical distancing. The desks are far apart, and that's where kids spend most of their time. In fact, to cut down on possible transmission of COVID-19, a lot of the school is closed.
The lunchroom's not being used, the library's not being used. Our gymnasium is not really used as a gymnasium. Our outside play structures can't be used.
There are new markings on the floors of the hallways. Everyone's supposed to stay to the right and to keep 2 meters from the people in front of them, which leads to the question, can you even get kids to physically distance?
I'd say 95% of the time, yes, but we're human and sometimes we cross paths and we back up. I'd say the biggest challenge is outside. When they're playing, one of my phys ed teachers actually organizes games for them outside to sort of teach them how to play social distance style.
No, it's your recess.
The staff is adapting, and some of it's a little strange. The soccer balls that usually get cleaned once a year are now sanitized several times a day. And there's also a new activity. Students are bringing their personal bikes to school for gym class.
The bikes, it's just to have another activity, have them able to use some equipment because it's hard to lend out equipment unless we're washing it every single time.
Some Quebec schools that reopened have had setbacks. In the first 3 weeks, close to 50 students tested positive and more than 30 staff. That despite all the preventative measures. The New Frontiers Board hasn't had a student test positive. They've been a little less lucky on the staff side.
I believe we've had 4 staff members who have been tested since we came back in May 11th, and I believe only one of them was positive, and that person is fine now. We've been fortunate as a school board to have not had a high number of cases that we've had to involve testing.
But you watch for that, I would imagine.
We certainly daily. I mean, that's one of the big roles of the principal and the staff here at the school. And we urge parents and children to not come to school if you're not feeling well.
When the province made the move to reopen schools, the argument was that while there was a danger, it was outweighed by the potential damage. Kids with learning difficulties need to be monitored, and for others sitting at home for months, mental health can be an issue. But the partial return with smaller classes has let schools find what works and what doesn't. The maximum number of students in a class was supposed to be 15. They found 11 is pretty much the maximum if you want to let kids stand up. The school also now has an indoor and an outdoor to help with social distancing, and they're working on new ways to send homework and notes home with students.
We don't even know if the kids are going to be able to bring things home. So we've decided as a staff to not buy agendas.
The big issue right now is communication inside the school, across the school board, and across the country. Quebec is being watched and sharing its experiences. Some experts predict this pandemic will lead to major changes in education, everything from the rethinking of the school calendar to new ways of teaching. The New Frontiers board barely did any online instruction before this. Now it's something new it brings to the table going forward, and it's sticking around.
I think we'll be a better system with the ability to have blended learning. Time will tell. I think moving forward, learning might never be the same. I think it'll be better.